All right, today I'm going to show you 6 ways to improve your clawhammer banjo speed. Because you know what, sometimes it's just fun to play fast, and these tips will help you get there. All right, so my first tip is to have the basics down solid. So if you've watched my videos before, you've probably heard me harp on this, but here's the thing, it's so important. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If you're playing something and it doesn't sound good slow, it's gonna sound even worse when you play it fast. So don't skip this step. Have those basics, those fundamentals solid. Be able to play what you're trying to play fast well at a slow speed. And use a metronome when you're starting out, because that is going to really help you as well. Now, if you are just getting started, if you don't have those fundamentals, those basics really rock solid, or you could use a refresher, I've got a free video course. It's totally free. It's going to teach you how to play Boil Them Cabbage Down, and we'll go really in depth into all those fundamentals. It's about 90 minutes long. Check the description for that. Tip number 2 to playing faster is use smaller movements. So this is something that can get easily overlooked because, you know, me as a banjo teacher, other banjo teachers, when we demo stuff, we kind of use these big exaggerated motions so you can see what's going on, right? But in all reality, those motions are much smaller when I'm playing. And especially if I'm playing fast, those movements can get actually really tiny. So if I'm just hanging out playing Cripple Creek, you know, my hand's coming a few inches off the strings when I do that hammer motion, but if I'm trying to play it really fast, those movements are tiny. I'm barely coming off the strings here. That said, like that motion still is fully intact. I am still making that hammer motion tiny. So think about that sort of consciously. Just move a little less. You know, the less you move, the faster you're going to be able to play. So tip number 3 really extends directly from the smaller movements. When you make those smaller movements, sometimes you can get tense. That's no good. This one is for the Swifties out there. Shake it off. So look, you want to have as little tension in your hands and arms as possible when you're playing. That's going to make it fluid. That's going to make your rhythm better. It's going to make everything good. But when you're really concentrating on playing fast, you can just get tenser and tenser and tenser until you're like flexing, right? And that is no good. So take breaks, shake out your arms, you know, and you'll eventually start to feel as you're playing when you are tensing up, and you'll kind of learn to relax that. You'll just sort of be aware of that peripherally, but that is huge, especially when you're playing fast. Don't tense. Like if I try to play Cripple Creek super fast tense, let's see what happens. Yeah, see, like my accuracy goes super downhill. The tempo is wonky. Yeah, you just got to stay relaxed. And so that still also extends from tip number 1 of going slow. If you just build up your speed slowly, you're going to be relaxed. Whereas if you're trying to force it, it's not going to happen. All right, tip number 4, subscribe to the BanjoSkills channel and like this video. Oh wait, we'll do that anyway. But tip number 4 is map out your left hand. Know what's going on with your left hand. One of the quickest things that can sort of train wreck a song when you're playing fast is if your left hand isn't keeping up with your right hand, right? So there's really 2 things that I think about when I'm talking about sort of mapping out my left hand. First is just getting the chord progression smooth, those chord changes smooth, especially if there's new chords, like maybe I haven't played a ton before. I really want to be able to play through just, you know, basic chord progression from the song smoothly at tempo without slowing down, basically. And so that is really good metronome work as well. Just get that chord progression smooth. Don't try to play fast until that is working for you. The next thing I think about with my left hand really is the index finger. So I'm kind of thinking home base here is whatever fret my index finger is above. So I'm kind of, you know, covering 4 frets with 4 fingers, but really I'm only thinking about sort of where my index finger falls on the banjo. That'll make it quite a bit easier. All right, so let's look at an example with crawdad hole. So it sounds something like this. Here's what I'm thinking about as far as, so my hand is moving a little bit here, like I'm doing that slide from 2 to 5 on the first beat. And again, I'm just kind of thinking about my index finger here is starting on the 1st fret. When I slide up, it's going to be above the 4th, and then I can just reset. So my index finger is back on the 1st. When I go to that D chord, I typically play that with my 1st and 2nd fingers on the 2nd and 3rd strings here. So I'm just going to shift up my index finger 1 fret here, and then just go back when I can, right? I'm just sort of thinking about that throughout the song, especially when I'm learning it. Like I don't really think about it now, but as I'm learning about it, I'm kind of thinking, where's my index finger? Using that as my home base, my base of operations, and just extending everything from there and sort of moving my bass here to make it as easy as possible for me to play the song. Make sense? Cool. All right, tip number 5 is tempo overloading. I love doing this. It's a lot of fun. So say that I want to play a song, at a high tempo. We'll look at Cripple Creek again. So say I really want to get this to like, whatever this is. And I'm not there, right? Well, first I'm going to start out playing, slow with a metronome. And I can bump up the metronome a few beats a minute at a time until it's starting to feel comfortable. But I'm going to reach a point where this gets really difficult for me. So I'm falling over myself. Like it's just not coming together. And even though I'm practicing a lot, I just can't seem to break through. Well, there's a couple things you can do here. The first thing you should do, honestly, take a break. If you're like me, you tend to hyper focus a little bit while you're practicing, and your muscles, your tendons, whatever, can't quite keep up with your brain. So sometimes just a 20-minute break will you'll come back and be able to play it. If that doesn't work, the next thing to do is this tempo overloading trick. So what I'm going to do, say I'm stuck at like 100 beats a minute and I can play it up to that level, but beyond that, it's just not working for me. What I can do is I can set the metronome to 115, 120 beats a minute, just something well beyond my skill level, and just try to play through it, keep up as best as I can. I'm going to crash, I'm going to mess up, it's not going to sound good. But a little psychological trick here, when you bump it back down, so do this, 3-4 times through, you're really going to struggle. That's okay. That's the point of the exercise. When you bump the tempo back down to 100 beats a minute, it's going to feel a lot slower and a lot easier. Your brain's going to relax a little bit, and you're going to find it much easier to play a song at a tempo that seemed out of reach before, right? Tip number 6, this is probably the most important tip of all, simplify, right? So look, no one can play, well, that's not true. There's some phenom out there that can play anything at any tempo. You've probably seen them on YouTube, but for us mere mortals, what do? Well, if I'm trying to play a song really fast, the first thing I'm looking to do is simplify. One cool thing is that, at a fast speed, something extremely simple can sound really cool. So let's take a look at an example. We'll look at Mississippi Sawyer. This is what I might play at a lower tempo. If I'm playing that at a really fast tempo, maybe I ended up at like a bluegrass jam and they decided to play Mississippi Sawyer. I don't know, do they ever play that in bluegrass jams? I don't know. But anyway, imagine it happened and they're trying to go at like 145 beats a minute or something like that. There's no way I'm going to be able to keep all these embellishments. It's going to be so difficult to stay in time and play well with this sort of our fancied up version. Those alternate string pull-offs. Those are going to be, much more difficult at high speed. That triplet, forget about it. There's no way I'm nailing that at like a super high tempo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a response to simplify. And if I play this, simplified version might be something like this. Right? Like I took out all the drop thumb, I took out all the alternate string pull-offs, the triplets, all that, fancy stuff, and we're just going back to basics. And it still sounds cool played at a fast tempo. So look to simplify. Now, how do you simplify, right? That can be tough, especially if you've learned the song from tab. You have a hard time separating the melody from the embellishments. Well, it's all in how you learn the song. And to do that, you're just going to go here.